Hey friends, Shadylikeatree here, and welcome into Reminiscing with Shady episode 93. This is Banjo Kazooie. Banjo Kazooie was developed by Rare and published by Nintendo. It was originally released in North America on June 29th, 1998. It was released about a month later in Europe and Australia, and then on December 6th, it was released in Japan. Banjo Kazooie did receive a lot of really high praise and high scores. Metacritic gives it overall a 92 out of 100. A lot of games give it 5 stars, give it A pluses, but it's widely considered to be a 9.5 for many gamers. One of the things I found when researching that I thought was good to know was that Banjo Kazooie was under development for more than 2.5 years. It was supposed to be an adventure game named Dream for Super Nintendo. In this game, it was supposed to be about a boy named Edison who owned a wooden sword and got into trouble with a group of pirates led by a captain named Buckeye. Edison was eventually replaced because the developers felt that he was just too basic, too generic, and then they tried Rabbit, but then they decided to go with a bear who they named Banjo. I feel that I should note some of the similarities to this game with some of the other similar games at the time. It's very much like Mario. It's also very much like Legend of Zelda. You know, it kind of takes some elements of both of those games, I think, and it kind of, you see the other games in this game from that time period, although they all kind of came out at different times. A lot of people, myself included, compare this game to Mario because it's a lot like that game. It takes many of the same elements, and people are kind of using Mario as a stepping stone to compare Banjo to, and I totally think that's a fair comparison to make. Interesting to note that Rare felt that having actual voices for the characters could ruin the perception of the characters, and so they kind of gave the mumbling personalities that they have today. I have to sort of bite my tongue when I think about this because to me, a voice can really add to a character, especially when it's done right, but I kind of understand because video games didn't really have voiceover actors then. They don't have many of the present day things that can help make modern video games great. I should also note really quickly that one of the people who worked on the soundtrack for this game also worked on the soundtrack for GoldenEye 007. Banjo Kazooie, in my experience, and kind of one of the reasons why I was able to play this game was one of those friendly creature games similar to Croc, which when I did that video I talked about this, is that I wasn't really allowed to play the violent shooters, I wasn't allowed to play the violent action adventures, and I use the term violence really loosely here because we're talking about a paranoid parent who doesn't know anything about video games, looking out for their 7, 8, 9-year-old child. So when I think about my childhood and some of the games I played when I was younger, I think of this game kind of similarly to Spyro, similarly to Croc, similarly to Crash Bandicoot. While there is some cartoon violence and you gotta hit the bull, you gotta throw the oranges at the monkey or what have you, at the end of the day, it's still kind of one of those very young and childish games that we all love to play. Besides, even if this game is young and childish, it's still fun, and I still have a good time pulling it out and running around the map. For me about this game, what's really fun is that there's kind of really two different characters that you're playing as. Of course, you have Banjo, who you run around as mostly, but then you also have Kazooie's abilities like the double jump and then to be able to run fast on his legs and things along those lines. And I think that having two characters in one kind of adds something to this game, and it's something that makes it different than Mario. It's something that makes it different than Crash and Spyro and a lot of the similar games of the time period that I just mentioned. To be honest though, I'm a big fan of Kazooie, and I think that I like that bird more than I like Banjo. Anyway, as many of you know, and I've stated in my other Nintendo 64 videos, I never actually owned a Nintendo 64. I always had to play these games at friends' houses, I always had to play these games at Walmart or places like that, and one of the things about this game is that this is the only Nintendo 64 game that the YMCA had. When I was a kid and after my parents got divorced, my Nana, who is my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, would drive the truck for the YMCA to the after school program. And while I waited for her to finish doing that, I would walk from my elementary school, which was essentially next door. There was a small creek in between the two that you had to cross this little tiny bridge. And then I would go there, and the YMCA people knew me, and they knew to let me in. And then I would sit in this little, like, it was basically two television screens and a table in the middle, and people would gather around the Nintendo 64 and play Madden and play other games. But Banjo was the only non-sports game they had, so I would constantly play this because, I didn't want to play the sports game because I wanted to play by myself a lot of the time, and it just wasn't as fun playing with the older kids because they were kind of mean to me. I'm kind of lost on this gameplay because it's been many, many years since I last played this game. It's been at least a decade, maybe longer, and that was probably right after the game came out when I first played that, and that's really the only actual video experience I have playing it is in that room, waiting on my Nana to pick me up after she got done dropping the kids off from the bus route. Kind of my highlight with this game and why I wanted to bring this game to you was this was kind of the first game where I realized and thought, hey, I can play video games, and video games are really fun, and it was kind of my first sense of self-worth when it came to gaming, because it had always kind of been, oh, hey, you play video games, you're weird. When one of the cool kids from school who happened to be there for whatever reason saw me playing this game, and I was absolutely dominating. I knew exactly what to do. I'd played it so many times. I had my save on the game, and I was beating through it, and he was just completely amazed at how good I was at this game. Back then. Now I'm terrible at it and can't even hardly remember what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to go, and I'm so bad with a Nintendo controller, it's ridiculous. He was there, I forget why, but I was just telling him all about the story and all about how things worked, and he was really into it, and it sort of made video gaming in my mind, because he was so popular and well liked. It was sort of that moment in life where video games became cool for me, and I know that around that time, that was when they were kind of being more widely accepted, and even today they're even more accepted, because literally everyone plays video games on their phone now, with the inventions of the smartphones, the iPhones, the Samsungs, the Nokias, etc. But back then it was really kind of not okay, and people thought if you played video games you just wasted your time, and you could be outside or you could do that, which to some degree you can still be outside instead of playing video games, but a lot of times these are entertainment experiences, and today I think this was kind of a first step for me realizing video games can be a form of entertainment on the same par as movies and music and books and comic books and things along those lines. And it's not just something that kids do, it's something that everyone can do and have a good time. And that's the lasting impact of this game and the games like this that I've mentioned, is that they're kind of that first step in your video gaming career to realizing the story potential and just the overall excitement and fun that you're going to be able to have with video games. So we all get to credit these early games for building the framework of today's modern games, the Infamouses, the Uncharteds, the Halos, the things like that, with their story elements that really make them great. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys for this video. This has been Reminiscing with Shady, episode 93, Banjo Kazooie on the Nintendo 64. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you like the video, please let me know in the comments or on Twitter. I will certainly look forward to reading what you have to say. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.